Well, January is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's no secret that January is one of the most difficult months of the year when it comes to mental health. 1 in 3 Manitobans are impacted by mental health challenges, and the number of sick leaves related to mental health are on the rise across Canada. Peer Connections Manitoba is combating those mental health challenges through their programming, including peer support. And we're joined this morning live in the Classic 107 studios by Peer Connections Manitoba's Executive Director Julia Hoeppner, along with Monique Levesque-Pharoah, Peer Connections Manitoba's Director of Development. We also have Shelley with us here this morning, a participant in the peer support program. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Oh, fantastic. You guys should be singing more often together. That's fantastic. So maybe we'll start with you, Julia, to say there's a couple of different iterations of peer support, I understand. What is peer support and how does it look in Peer Connections Manitoba's programming?
You know, quite simply put, peer support is connecting over shared experiences. So, you know, I like to talk about it in the way of, when we look at our own lives and we're looking at just who do we go and talk to on a regular basis when something hard happens, we often seek out that person who has a shared experience. We think about that person in our life who's gone through it before because they truly understand. And so peer support is that connection with an individual with lived experience who's been there. And so at Peer Connections Manitoba, we train and certify individuals to be able to have these conversations and explore what does that experience mean for you? You know, how do you move through that experience? And so it can be quite a powerful tool.
It's one thing to have the support of like a therapist or counselor or something, but a whole other thing to have somebody there with you saying, hey, I've been there.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Let's experience these things. Let's have this shared experience together.
Exactly. It really leads people to not feel so alone.
Yeah. How do people access peer supports through Peer Connections Manitoba?
Quite simply by calling our office, by accessing our website. There's multiple ways of finding us. And so we really want to be there for individuals when they need it.
Shelley, you have been somebody who has taken advantage of those shared experiences through peer support. I'm wondering, how did you first access peer support, and how was that experience just taking that first step to saying, hey, I need some support, and how Peer Connections here's Peer Connections that can help me?
Well, I basically needed something a little more than just picking up a phone and calling a stranger and not getting the same person each time. I needed somebody that had lived experience along with myself, and someone that was in my position to understand my circumstances. And when I found my peer supporter, she had quite a lot of lived experience, and she understood what I was going through and how it felt.
Yeah, and those feelings, in your case, I understand were quite strong, and you had some rather difficult things that you needed support through. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit of your story and maybe how you arrived at the point where you were reaching out to Peer Connections Manitoba.
No problem. I've received peer support at Peer Connections Manitoba. What I want people to know is that families and friends can access support at Peer Connections Manitoba, in addition to individuals experiencing mental health challenges. My daughter died by suicide May 1st, 2023, and if it weren't for my peer supporter, I myself would not be here. This amazing resource has kept me alive in my darkest hours.
Wow. What an incredible resource to have, to be able to find that support. Maybe I'll turn it back to you for a second, Julia, to ask, when someone like Shelley reaches out for support, what are the processes within Peer Connections Manitoba to then say, okay, this person needs that support? What's the best way for them to receive that where they are at?
Right, that's a great question. And so really it's determined by the person calling. So if you feel like you need peer support, then we're going to be there for you. We don't tell you that you can't access our service. It's fully self-determined, which is so wonderful about peer support. And so the process in terms of, so say you call the office and you start talking to somebody about your request for peer support, you'll be passed on to our intake coordinator, who's going to then match you with a peer supporter. And sometimes there's a bit of a wait, but we try to keep our wait times really low so that you can access peer support quite quickly.
There are, of course, a lot of resources that need to be put in place for all of that to happen. And maybe I'll turn this over to you, Monique, to ask that, of course, peer support can't happen without the support of community. And you're doing so with a campaign called Bridging the Community. What can you tell us about that?
Well, bridging the community with peer support is exactly that. There's a gap in our services in Manitoba. In fact, if you know the stats, you know that Manitoba has one of the highest areas of need around mental health challenges, and yet the lowest government spend. And so the government and the healthcare system can't do it all. And when people are accessing peer support through the many ways that they can through the healthcare system, that's often not enough. And in addition to that, what if you're experiencing low-level anxiety? You're not really at the stage where you're going to go to a crisis center. You're not going to present at the hospital. We're there for those people, so that it's that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
You're addressing people even before it gets to a point of crisis and trying to nip these feelings of a need for support in the bud before they even become a real flowering problem in someone's life.
Nolan beautifully said. There's a saying that a healthy person has a myriad of wishes, and an unhealthy person has only one, and that includes our mental health. So when we think about bridging the community with that peer support, that's what we're doing. We're meeting Manitobans where they are at and when they need us.
That is also quite beautifully said. You can stop by this studio with a microphone anytime you like.
I love it.
If someone wants to support Peer Connections Manitoba in your work, whether it be financially or in some other form of support, how can they reach out and do that?
Go to peerconnectionsmb.ca. That's where you can find a peer supporter, but also find me to help Manitobans get the support that they need. Or you can call the office, 786-1616. Please, people, join us for, Mental Wellness Month. That's not the only month that we need to spotlight our mental health. Join the likes of Red River Mutual, which is an organization who's part of the Peer Connections family, who's celebrating 150 years this year. Johnston Group was our match and giving partner. First-time donor, Carla Peltier-Gray, lots of others that are understanding this is the time to invest in mental health. Best way to do it is with Peer Connections Manitoba.
Absolutely. You talk about January being Mental Health Awareness Month. And maybe, Julia, I'll ask this. Does Peer Connections offer any supports in Mental Health Awareness Month, specifically in January, to address maybe those sort of heightened mental health concerns, or as mental health is more in the spotlight in these few weeks of January?
We do have just our regular services going on, which is peer support groups that individuals and families can access at any time. So you can find our services quite responsively anytime during the year.
Fantastic.
And so we don't necessarily have an extra amount of services in January, but please do check out our website, as Monique mentioned, or call the office if you want more information about our services or need to access service. We also have educational opportunities and workshops. We're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And so please do check us out because we're really here for your mental health, and we want you to know that you're not alone.
Of course. So we talk about the appeal to the potential supporters of Peer Connections Manitoba. And maybe, Shelley, I'll leave it to you to maybe address the people who are thinking about reaching out to have some of those shared experiences in their support network. What would you say to someone listening right now who's maybe considering peer support or reaching out for some sort of mental health supports, but maybe they're on the fence about taking that step in their lives?
Well, Nolan, I would say in this service, you're matched with a trained peer supporter that has lived experience and can empathize with you and have exploratory conversations about what recovery and wellness mean to you. I also have lived experience with borderline personality disorder, and without my peer supporter, I definitely would be alone to face my mental health issues. Peer Connections Manitoba is a resource that needs more attention so we can support people and hopefully save lives.
Very important work that you are all doing, and thank you so much for letting us know about it here on Classic 107. Shelley, Monique, and Julia, thank you so much for joining us here in our studios.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.